attending today. My name is Jody Weiler from Great Garment Graphics, and today we are hosting by Transfer Express Advanced Transfer Techniques. And for those of you that have been in our webinars previously, Andy Curtis joins us regularly, usually once a month, to impart his wisdom and educate us on certain transfer techniques and ways that you can improve your business. And Andy's been with Transfer Express for a little more than 10 years. He started off as just a customer service rep. Now he's a dealer services team leader. He's also the trainer in charge, and has just accepted a new position as a full-time trainer at Transfer Express. So we're very excited about that. He has a wealth of education to offer. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in, and usually we'll answer them at the end of the session. And also, just as a little housekeeping note, you will also be able to actually listen or join in on a webinar December 6th, hosted by Transfer Express, and it's actually going to be a CAD cut panel of experts. It'll be Andy, Georgianne Schilling, and Mary Ellen Pavlak, who all have an area of expertise. Some are designers. Andy is educated in product and pricing, and it's just going to be a question and answer session. So come, feel free to register today, and come armed with your questions, anything you want to know, anything you've been thinking about, and either Andy or Georgianne or Mary Ellen will be happy to answer them for you. So with that being said, I would like to welcome Andy. Hi, Andy.
Hey, Jody. Thanks for the intro, and hello, everybody. If you've joined me before, you know that we like to start the webinars off with a couple polls. And the point of it is just for me to know who I'm talking to, because if you've joined us before, you know I can talk for 45 minutes without a problem. So, Jody, if you would tell us what the first poll is.
Yes, I just launched it. It's what have you even tried to do? So have you tried an over the zipper, a split front, a sleeve, a leg, or generally you don't really do much else but fronts?
And we're going to talk about all these bits and pieces too. So if there's one of these in particular that you want to know about, we'll be talking about all of them. But this gives me a good idea of what you guys have tried, so we can know what to dwell on.
Looks like we still have some people voting. I'll close it in just a couple seconds here. Wow, almost half, Andy, are doing nothing but fronts.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, hopefully by the end of this webinar we'll be able to fix that. I don't want anybody to be afraid of anything other than fronts. So let's run that second poll too, if you would, Jody. Thank you.
Yeah. What is your biggest application challenge?
And again, these are all things we're going to talk about today in some form or another. And we know that these are all things that can be a little bit of a pain to press on, but there's no reason to be afraid of any of these. So we're gonna talk about all of them. I just want to know what you guys are most interested in.
I'll give it just a couple more seconds. It looks like we still have some people voting. Okay. Let's see. Zippers and split fronts.
That's about right. I guess it would be zippers
isn't
and
it?
split fronts, wouldn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Jody, for your help with those polls. And Jody's going to be behind the scenes. If you guys have questions as we go, we'll do our best to answer them. At the end, though, hopefully if I don't talk too much here, we'll be able to take some questions at the end. And, so keep asking those in the chat box, and even if I do not get to them, keep in mind that you will get a personal email with the answer to that question after the webinar is over. So regardless, your questions will be answered, I promise. And a recording of this webinar will be made available to everybody, as well as a PDF of the slides on the Great Garment Graphics website. So if you're interested in the PDF of the slides or the recording, make sure to hit Great Garment Graphics to see those. But without further ado, welcome everybody again. Thanks for coming to Advanced Transfer Techniques. We're going to jump right into it. And the first two things we're going to talk about are sort of art-related advanced transfer techniques, and then we're going to get into the actual heat press techniques. But the first thing I want to mention to everybody is distressing. Now, some of you out there, I'm sure there's some of you sitting there going, oh, distressing is not new, I know about this. But it always stuns me how many people have never thought to go there and do this. Distressing artwork is incredibly popular. It has been for a while now. For some reason, the kids out there love to get the transfers, love to get stuff that looks like it's about 40 to 50 years old. So now, just a couple little points here. Distress designs can be used with any layout in the idea book. We can apply any of these 5 distress designs you see, we can apply them to your artwork or our artwork with no additional fee. So you're literally not paying any extra for these, not a penny more. So keep that in mind. Now, if you are interested in using a distress pattern and you're ordering on our website, then reference which type of distress you want to use. Now, if you simply put in your web order notes that I want this distressed, then we're going to have to call you to find out, okay, well, which distress are you talking about? And if you don't know, that's fine. We can discuss that at that time. But if you do know, make sure to tell us. There are clip art numbers you can see there associated with each type of distress. For example, the top left-hand corner, we've got the rain distress type, which is X19A-995. If you happen to know the clip art number of your distress that you want, that's great. You can put that in the notes and we can work with that. If you don't know the distress, the clip art number, you can just tell us the name. For example, the one in the middle there, the top middle, is Splatter. That was my personal favorite. You can just say, I want Splatter Distress. Okay, and these rules go over the phone or over the website. Now, keep in mind, here's where this becomes an advanced transfer technique, and the whole reason we don't talk about this in the simple Heat Pressing 101 webinars is because you have to keep in mind what your artwork looks like. If you have a piece of art that is thin text or thin clip arts or fine detail in your clip arts, then you do not want to distress that because you're going to lose that fine detail. Anything you distress should always be big and bold. Like these footballs that you see here in the example, these footballs are perfect for distressing because they're big, they're bold. There's a lot of ink there to distress. Here's an example for you. We had a situation where somebody had a hockey design with some hockey sticks and some thin artwork. Well, hockey sticks aren't really thick like footballs, and after distressing them, they look kind of funky because there's a lot of ink missing. So you got to keep in mind what your subject matter is before you go about distressing it. Also keep in mind that we've rated our distress patterns. There's the pink text above each football. For example, the top left hand there, the rain distress, is considered a medium distress pattern. Now, the reason we're saying that is because of the amount of ink that's been removed. If you look at the 3 medium distresses, the rain, the splatter, and the crackle, they're not really heavy, but there are parts of those distress patterns that have chunks, actual chunks taken out, to where the light distress, the bottom left hand side there, the leather, that leather is a light distress because there's no actual chunks removed from it, but there are lines going through it. And then, of course, the grunge distress at the top right-hand corner there. The grunge is the hardcore distress pattern. And it's one of those situations where if you order these distress patterns, our graphic designers will do their best to orient it in such a fashion that it looks good. But keep in mind that if you're using a heavy or medium distress, that you could have actual chunks removed from your text and your clip art. So just bear all these things in mind before you do that. But all of that being said, what we're doing is we're offering you a way to make your artwork look hip, to make it look cool, and sometimes that distress pattern just adds the extra panache that your design needs, that extra oomph that really makes it pop. So just something to keep in mind. And you don't want to use this on every design either. Don't do overkill with the distress stuff. Mainly athletic designs are the best direction to go when we're talking about distress. Anything for the football team. Cheerleaders, it's always kind of cool when you're doing the powder puff jerseys. If you're doing a pink jersey for a girls' powder puff team, some distress transfer on top of that always looks kind of cool. So just some ideas to throw out there for you. We're going to move on to patterns, and again, this is using our artwork. This is easy prints. These are patterns that we offer. Now, this is the same concept as the distress patterns we just looked at. The difference is the patterns, instead of being chunks of ink missing like a distress pattern is, a pattern is a printed pattern. an actual pattern of ink. Now, here's an important note here. As you're looking at the slide here, everything you see on the left-hand side, that's the single one-color version of those same patterns that are on the right side. Now, just because you select a pattern, for example, the very first one in both examples, X21A-1, just because you select X21A-1 doesn't mean you're going to get those colors. The patterns do not automatically come colored. Okay, so that's why you're looking at two versions there. The left side is the one color. The right side is a possible version of a two-color or a multicolor. So that being said, the point of the patterns is for you to take a bold piece of text, like the football we saw on the last slide, or maybe a big, bold, thick line of text, and you can put these patterns into those big, bold areas, whether they're text or clip art. And what it does is, again, it just adds that extra little oomph. It gives it a little bit of a cool look. And what's kind of funny is, for those of you who are around for the 80s, it's sort of funny to see these animal patterns coming back. I have to say I was sort of surprised the first time my little sister in high school came home wearing some of these tiger stripes and leopard spots. It was definitely a double take. But this stuff is coming back into style. The animal prints especially, they are very popular. Of all the patterns you see here on the screen, our animal prints are the ones that are selling more than the rest of them. So, and again, just like the distress patterns we saw a second ago, folks, these do not cost you any extra to use the pattern. Okay, it does cost extra if you decide to make the pattern multiple colors, though. Keep that in mind. Unlike the distress patterns we saw a second ago, distress takes ink away. These patterns, if you choose, for example, to use that top left one, X21A-1, the paisley, if you choose to use paisley and you want it to be 2 or 3 colors, then you're going to pay for a transfer that is 2 or 3 colors. So keep that in mind, that these don't have to cost extra, but depending on how much you put into it, that's what you're going to get out of it. So again, the left-hand side shows you the one-color versions, right-hand side shows you the multicolor versions. The biggest piece of advice I can give everybody listening is, number one, to try it. Don't be afraid to use these patterns. They are fantastic. They've been super popular since they came out. Even if you just show your dealer using our Easy View system, if you just show your customer that it's possible. But the biggest piece of advice is to make sure whatever you're putting the pattern into, make sure it's a big, bold, thick piece of art or text, because these patterns will not get the desired effect if it's a thin piece of text or it's a thin area that you're trying to put it into. We've had several situations where the zebra print, the tiger stripes especially, when you try to put those into thin areas, it actually ends up looking like a printing mistake. It ends up looking like somebody fell asleep at the switch and the screen had a gook on it or something. So you got to make sure that if you're going to use these patterns, you use them in the proper setting. So big, bold text. For those of you asking, okay, well, what's big, bold text? I would encourage you to check 2 letter styles in our idea book. The Aardvark and the Nordic are 2 very bold, thick fonts that the patterns and the distress both look phenomenal in. So just a little hint and a tip there. Let's see here. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so those are just some artwork, advanced artwork techniques. Now, before we get into these advanced pressing techniques that we're about to talk about, I want to remind everybody of the video section on TransferExpress.com. The video section was put together by our marketing department, Sue Wilkowski and Stephanie Gravens and Mike Romano, Jordan Schilling, a bunch of people that got together. They did these fantastic videos. It's literally a video on every topic you could possibly need to see a video on. If you want to watch Stephanie press a goof proof, you can go on there and watch Stephanie press a goof proof. Or if you want to see her do a split front, or there's literally a video for everything. And I'm going to pop out to the website really quick here and show you what I'm talking about. Let's pop out to TransferExpress.com here. Wait for it to load up. All right, there we go. Once you're at TransferExpress.com, you'll notice the red toolbar that runs across the very top of the website. On that red toolbar, the very far right-hand side says Help and Education. Once you put your mouse on there, you'll see a little window pop up. the very bottom link in that window says Educational Videos. Once we click there, and I'm not going to play a video because, as we know from past experience, you guys will not be able to hear the video, so you'll have to go here and do that yourself. But the videos are broken up into different categories: past webinars, company news, application instructions, heat press training, all sorts of great stuff. You simply click on one of those categories and you see a breakdown of all the videos that are on that category, and there's all sorts of stuff in here. So please remember that that's there for you. The whole point of these videos is to help guide you folks to what you need. So keep in mind those are out there. So now, without further ado, let's pop back to the webinar here. Let's talk about some advanced transfer techniques like we were discussing in the poll. So the first one we're going to cover here is zippered hoodies. Now, I don't know about you folks, but hoodies are super, super popular right now, at least the local high schools here in Ohio. Maybe less so in the warmer parts of the country, but hoodies are always a staple in this area because kids will wear them in the schools during the winter time. And the whole hood and zipper deal is just popular with the youth culture right now. So no doubt you've had a request for hoodies, or at least had the chance to do some. Now, the reason I'm qualifying it as a zippered hoodie technique is because we're about to talk about how to do a hoodie that has a different type of zipper on it. So this is a covered zipper, meaning as you're looking at your hoodie, there is fabric that actually covers the zipper, like almost a pair of lips that sort of cover up the zipper. So that's the type of hoodie we're looking at for this particular application. We're going to do one, the next slide, we're going to talk about a hoodie that does not have a fabric covering the zipper. Okay. So that being said, this is so fun for me because when we first figured this out, I remember thinking, no, this can't be, you can't do that, that can't be right. Simply, if you have a hoodie with a zipper with fabric covering the zipper, you make sure your fabric is properly covering the zipper, you make sure your zipper is all zipped up to the top. You lay your hoodie flat on your press with the zipper facing up, assuming that's where you're pressing on the front of the hoodie. Make sure you've got your press set to the proper instructions, the right time, temperature, all that good stuff. Increase your pressure just a little bit because what we're about to do is a little unorthodox. We're going to break some rules. We're actually going to press with the zipper on the press. Let everybody process that for just a second. It's a rule breaker. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to have obstructions on the heat press when you press things. But we're actually, that's how this is done. You're going to press with the zipper on the press. So again, you've taken your hoodie, you've zipped it all the way up. It's not open, it's zipped up, and you've laid it down with the zipper facing up. Okay. Increase your pressure a little bit to make up for the fact that we're about to press over the zipper. You're going to position the full transfer over the hood with that zipper facing up, meaning you're going to position the transfer exactly where you want it to go. Now, if you are having a hard time centering it, because I know it can be a little disorienting the first time you press over a zipper like this, what you do is you actually take your transfer and don't actually fold it, but you sort of make a little crease. You start to fold it, make a little crease in the paper as if you were going to fold it so you have an idea where the middle is at. Either way, you place your transfer on the front of the hoodie where you want it over the zipper. You apply it at the regular time and temperature, but the increased pressure. Then, once you've peeled the paper off, and again, follow the instructions, whether it's cold peel or hot peel, once you've peeled the paper off, all you do is take the zipper and unzip the hoodie. As you unzip it, it splits the ink. It literally is that simple. I've seen it done a bunch of times. It comes out looking perfect every time. It's a fantastic, fantastic way to go about doing these zippered hoodies without extra steps, no extra lining up, no being worried, oh my gosh, did I line the left side up with the right side? And you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Now again, this only works if you have a hoodie that has a zipper with fabric covering it. Now I noticed there was a question about pillow. And I thank you to whoever brought this one up. If you are doing this application, you do not want to use a pillow. We recently had a big seminar in Cleveland, for those of you who heard about it, called D3. And I told everybody at this seminar when I spoke there that if you don't learn anything else from me today, if you only learn one thing, it's that when you're doing Transfer Express products, when you're doing screen printed products, you never use a pillow, ever, 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 ever. So in this situation, you do not want to use a pillow. The reason is, whether we're talking about zippered hoodies or we're talking about other situations like muff pockets or mesh, that kind of stuff, you don't want to use a pillow ever, because a pillow will take away the pressure that the transfer needs to properly bind to the garment. Without that pressure, the transfer will come off the paper, but it won't actually be stuck to the shirt, and the first time you wash it, that transfer is coming off in the wash. So never, ever, 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 ever use a pillow. If you need to raise the surface area, which we're going to talk about in a couple minutes, you're going to use a Print Perfect pad. And I have some tidbits I'll give you there, so I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, but good question, whoever pointed that one out. So anyway, again, this advanced application technique, folks, this works when you have a hoodie with fabric covering the zipper. Now, of course, we know that not every hoodie comes that way. So there's always the hoodies that do not have fabric covering the zippers, such as this one in this picture here. You'll notice, and that's a picture of, this is actually a picture right from Stephanie's video that's off of transferexpress.com. You'll notice, as Stephanie's pointing out in the picture there, this particular hoodie did not have fabric covering the zipper. You can see the zipper's open right there. Now, the difference here is, again, it's sort of the same thing. The difference is we're going to have to cut it ahead of time. So again, you zip the hoodie up, and you lay it zipper facing up on your platen. Okay, so again, we're breaking a little bit of a rule. Zip the hoodie up. Make sure to have your time and your temperature set to the correct time and temperature. Then you're going to turn your pressure up a little bit, because again, we're breaking a rule. We're pressing over top of the zipper. We want to make sure the transfer has even pressure, so we're going to turn the pressure up a little bit. Then what you're going to do is you're going to lay the transfer flat on the hoodie and see where the split would be. Okay, if you're just laying it there and visually looking at it, you eyeball where you want that cut to be, and that's where you're going to take a pair of scissors and just cut straight up through the transfer. Okay, now you can also use a cutting board. If you have a nice cutting board, it doesn't have to be new, brand spanking new, but you want to make sure your blade on your cutting board is still sharp if it's going to cut through the ink and everything, or a pair of scissors works fine too. You can cut transfer with a pair of scissors also. But either way, you're going to figure out where that split should be on the transfer, then take the transfer and cut it, okay? And this is where you're going to pay attention to the grid lines on the back of the transfer. All of our transfers here at Transfer Express have grid lines on the back, so pay attention to your grid lines. Then you're going to lay either side of the transfer where it needs to go, obviously not pressing over the zipper in this case, because you don't have the fabric lips covering the zipper. So you have to lay either side of the transfer on either side of the zipper. Use your grid lines to make sure everything's lined up as good as you can get it to be lined up. And keep in mind, folks, this is not one of those things you have to stress about. I have never, ever seen somebody run up to somebody else on the street and say, hey, your shirt's crooked. So don't treat this as something you have to spend 10 minutes on each hoodie. The first one, you might second guess yourself a little bit. You might take a little bit longer, but as you do a couple of these, it gets faster and it gets much easier, I promise. So this is not something to stress or freak out about. So again, you've used your grid lines to line up the left side and the right side. Then you simply press it like you always would. That pressure that we turned up will help compensate for the zipper. Once the press is lifted up, you make sure to peel both sides as quick as possible, meaning that you don't want to peel one side and let the other side cool down or anything like that. So you want to make sure you get them peeled at the appropriate times for the transfer instructions. And there you have it. You've got a zipper right in the middle and two transfers on either side. Okay, so that's the way to go about doing this. Now, there are exceptions to every rule, but if you ever have questions in these regards, if you're looking at what you believe to be a particularly unique type of garment, or maybe you've got some kind of seams that are in the way, or you've got a unique situation, I would encourage you to always call. Always call and ask us. Our reps can help you through every step of the way. I am also available for phone conversation too, so anybody can assist you with these types of situations. But these are just two examples of how to press on zippered hoodies. And you don't want to ignore these garments just because you might not have pressed over a zipper before, because these are super popular. Now, I'm sure everybody has pressed the pullover hoodies that don't have a zip up, and those are popular also. Those have their own crowd. But I can tell you from experience that the Mentor High School Spirit Shop does sell the zippered hoodies more than they sell the pullover hoodies. And that's just using the local high school as an example. So just a thought to put out there, folks. Okay, so let's move on from zippers and hoodies, oh my, to numbers inside of pieces of clip art. I've been here, as Jody mentioned, I've been here for a little more than 10 years, and it's always funny the fads that sort of come into play and then fizzle out, that sort of thing. What's popular right now is to personalize a otherwise generic design with a kid's number. For example, we're doing I think she's doing a pair of sweatpants. This is a pair of sweatpants you see in the picture here, and this is one of the videos on the website. This is a pair of sweatpants that we've put Tiger football. So your local little league, junior football league, they're the Tigers, the Mentor Tigers. So you've got the Tiger football, you've pressed it on there. Now the kids want to go a step further, and they actually want their number on that individual pair of sweatpants. The problem is we can't necessarily print it like that. If we were to print you 5 sheets of Tiger football and they all said the number 1, then you'd all have the number 1. We can't print just 1 sheet of Tiger football number 1, and then 1 sheet of Tiger football number 2, and then 1 sheet of Tiger football number 3, etc. So here's the strategy, folks. You print your Tiger football design just like you see here, okay? Like in the example above the photographs here, you see Tiger football right here on the left-hand side next to the scissors. You print your Tiger football just like you see here, all right? QFB 150 is the layout for anybody interested. Print that design, and you press it on all of the sweatpants. Then you go back and you order express names. Express names, again, are our pre-spaced player name product, but we're going to get a little bit creative here. We're going to get a little unorthodox again. Instead of printing a pre-spaced player name, print a number. For example, the Tiger football design that we've done here is about 4 inches by 4 inches, give or take. Then the number, the express name that we're producing with these numbers, the express name is 1 inch tall. That's about the appropriate size to fit inside that little football. So what we've done is instead of a pre-spaced player name, we've just typed 12, 13, 14, 15, just like you see in that example there. Then, after we've pressed the Tiger football over all of the pairs of sweatpants, we're going to go back. We're going to cut the number 12 out, and we're going to put the number 12 on the appropriate child's pair of sweatpants. And we're going to do the same thing with the 13, the 14, and so forth. So that's how we're creating these custom numbered, individually numbered pairs of sweatpants without having to break the bank by ordering crazy minimums just because one kid is number 1, one kid's number 2, and so forth. So again, you're ordering the design with your blank clip art, nothing in it. You apply it. Then you cut the express name. Okay, and we also have peel and press numbers as well, folks. There's 2 strategies to go about this one. The express name strategy is just the cheaper direction to go. You cut your express name apart like you see in the example. You position the number. Now there's an important step here that we don't have in the photographs. There's an important step that if you don't take anything else away here, whenever you're doing a multi-step application like this, where we're doing something where we've pressed one transfer and now we have to press another transfer, remember that your heat press, the upper platen where the heat comes from, cannot touch a transfer that has already been applied. You do not want that upper platen, the warm part of the heat press, to touch ink on a garment. So after you've pressed the Tiger football and then you've cut your 12 out of the express names, you've put the 12 in the football where you want it, instead of just pressing, you have to cover the whole thing with a piece of cover sheet from Transfer Express, a piece of craft paper, a piece of non-stick paper, something like that. Okay, so you want to make sure you're covering up the whole transfer, because if the heat press were to touch Tiger football after it's been pressed, you're going to have a big yucky mess on your upper platen. Trust me, I've done it. So you don't want to get yourself into that mess. So after you've pressed it then, you take your cover sheet off, you peel off your little piece of paper from the express name, and boom, you've got your individually numbered sweatpants. And this concept can be done on more than just sweatpants too. Keep in mind that's just what Stephanie used in her video example here. You could do this on a t-shirt. You could do this for tote bags. You could do this for a warm-up suit. You could do this for just about anything. Anything that has the individual number concept. You can also plan this out to the same concept with something bigger than just this left chest example, this little 4x4 example. You could take a cheerleading design with a big megaphone that's got an open space in it, a big 11 by 11 cheerleading design with an open megaphone. Then take a 2-inch tall name and just make sure that the representative is aware you're going to put names inside the megaphone, and we'll size it properly. Then take a 2-inch tall name. You apply your cheerleading design with your megaphone first, peel it off, put your name inside the megaphone, and there you go. The cheerleaders have individually named warm-up suits, and it's not like the name is just centered above there or anything. It's actually incorporated into the design. So you can take this idea and you can run with it. The rule of thumb, the thing that you need to take away from this, though, is to make sure if you're pressing transfer on top of transfer, make sure the press does not touch ink that has already been applied. Okay? So let's go ahead and move on to the next one here. So this is sort of a similar idea. And it's funny because I've seen so much of this in the last year. And this makes sense, too, if you think about it, folks. Numbers are something we all see all the time. All of us who are in the sports community, who do a lot of sports, it doesn't even have to be soccer. It can be baseball, football, basketball, whatever. We have seen every type of number there is out there in terms of style of numbers. We've probably used every font style of numbers at this point. So the question is, what can you do to make the numbers look different? After so many years, the soccer leagues and the football leagues, they'd like to see something different anyway, too. You, as a decorator, need to keep your repertoire fresh. You need to keep the ideas current, because otherwise you're going to lose your audience. So here is a great way to spice up what would otherwise be just a plain number on the back of a jersey. What you do is, this is just like what we talked about a second ago. This is a 2-step application. You place your order for your names and your plain numbers, just your plain easy print numbers. In this case, this is literally just your standard 6-inch or 8-inch, I'm not sure what that is, a 6-inch or an 8-inch number 2, orange with a white outline. This is champ style. That's all it is. So what they've done is they've applied the name, patent, on there. Then they've applied the number on there, the number 2. Then what they've done is they've gone back, they've placed another order, an order for just a little 1x1 or 2x2, just a really small Mentor soccer with a flaming soccer ball. Okay. Now, the Mentor soccer with the soccer ball has been done in white, so it complements the outline color of the number. Then what we've done is, after we've pressed the patent and the number 2, we've gone back, we've put the Mentor soccer in the bottom left of that number there. We've covered up the whole image because, again, remember what I said just a minute ago, the transfers cannot touch the upper platen. That patent and that number 2 that have already been pressed cannot touch the upper platen. You got to make sure everything's covered. So you cover everything up, you peel the cover sheet off, then you peel the little piece of paper that had Mentor Soccer off, and boom, you've got these custom numbers. It's not just the same plain number that the league has been looking at for the last 5-6 years. It's something different. So this is a fantastic, a great way for you to spice these up. And if you get the clip arts, whatever you end up doing, whether it's just the words Mentor Soccer or maybe it's just a flaming soccer ball, whatever it is, get it out of our idea book, because then it's cheap. It's anything out of the idea book is very cost effective. And remember that we're making these small to fit inside of numbers, so they can be tiny. They can be 1 inch by 1 inch, 2 inch by 2 inch, and you can put a whole lot of those on one sheet of paper and then just get 5 gang sheets of it. Okay, so that's just a cheap way to make these numbers a little bit cooler, a little bit spiced up, you know. Now, there's another way to go about doing this also. If you have a large league, this might not be as feasible to sit there and do a double application on every jersey in some massive soccer league. So keep in mind, when you have big leagues, we have a very cost-effective way of doing custom numbers. Simply call our reps, our 800 number, call us and tell us how many of each digit you need, and a rep can give you a quote on how much those custom numbers would cost. Do it yourself. That's only effective, though, when you have a big league. If you're doing one team, then printing custom numbers as a one-hit like that is a little bit more expensive. So if you've got one team you're doing this for, then you want to do the two-step application that I've explained to you here. And again, the one thing everybody needs to take away from this is, again, when you do a two-step application, the heat press, the heat element cannot touch ink that has already been pressed. Okay. So again, just a neat idea to keep things fresh. And again, I have talked to more than one customer. I have a customer who's a friend of mine in Texas who every season she calls up and says, "Okay, Andy, what's fresh? I cannot give the Bears Football League another champ number. It has to be something different." So this was a cool idea we went with this year. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, here we go. This is the grandpappy of the application problems. This is the application type that everybody's just a little bit scared of. And I have to admit that when I was brand new to Transfer Express, the concept of doing a split front uniform scared the holy water out of me. I didn't understand how you were supposed to make that happen and make it look good. So as a new rep, I fully admit to you all that I was nervous about this too. But it is much easier than you think it is. It's a little bit time consuming, I'm not going to lie to you. It's a little bit time consuming. But if you do a proper split front baseball jersey, it is a quality look that will add so much value to an otherwise plain jersey. In the example here, we've taken just a plain button-up baseball jersey. I'm not sure if we got this from Teamwork Athletic or Broder Brothers, but one of the two, I'm sure. And then we've taken just one of our regular script and tail designs. This particular script and tail design happens to have a baseball bat tail, but either way, it doesn't really matter. What we've done here is we've pre-measured the space between the buttons to make sure our script and tail will be small enough to fit in between the buttons of the jersey. This is something that I know I don't have on the list of instructions here, but keep in mind that's something you do have to look out for, is to make sure that you're going to have room to actually put your design on the front. So if you're going to press between buttons or you're going to press around buttons, whatever it is, make sure that you've approached it that way. It sucks when you have a situation where you've ordered transfers and then realize afterwards, oh my gosh, I didn't pre-measure this, now I have to get different jerseys. So don't do that to yourself. Make sure you measure everything ahead of time. Okay, so that being said, here is one way to do a split front. Now, I'm not by any means telling all of you that this is the only way to do it. There are tons. I'm sure that if I polled all 107 of you right now that are listening, I could probably get at least 50 different ways to do a split front, and that's just off the top of my head. There are a lot of ways to do this. This is the way we here at Transfer Express suggested. This is what our marketing people have done. It's the tried and true method for us, so just keep that in mind. So again, just like every other transfer that we've talked about so far today, make sure that you have your time and temperature set properly. We're not messing with the time and temperature. Make sure you've got it set right. You're going to button your jersey up. Okay, so again, split front, button-up jersey. Button the whole jersey up all the way to the top. Okay, you want to make sure you've got it laying flat. You don't have different sides and stuff offset from one another. So button your shirt all the way up. Lay it on your platen with the buttons facing up. Okay. Position the transfer for just a second. Take your transfer, lay it on the garment, and figure out where the split's going to happen. Okay, you can use your grid lines on the back of the transfer paper to help you make that cut straight, or take a pencil and draw yourself a line to cut along. Either way, make sure you're using that button-up transfer. You're placing the transfer on top of it just to see where the cut needs to happen. Then you make that cut, okay, just cut into 2 pieces. Then what you're going to do is you're going to line up those 2 pieces with, again, the jersey buttoned up and everything. You're going to line up those 2 pieces to the best of your ability. And again, keep in mind, folks, people are not going to run up to you and point out itty-bitty, teeny-weeny imperfections. Keep in mind also that these are baseball jerseys. These are jerseys people are going to see from the stands, not from a foot away. So tiny little itty-bitty imperfections are not something to stress out about. So again, you're going to apply both halves. Okay, line them up to your best of your ability. This is why we have the grid lines on the back. Line them up and press them. Then only peel the right half. Okay, only peel the right half. Unbutton your shirt, then press the left half by itself. The reason we've done this is because you've buttoned the jersey up, you've created sort of a weird pressure situation. The right half of the jersey is on top of the left half of the jersey. So the right half of the jersey just got all of the pressure in that first heat press hit. So the right half is totally applied fine, you peel it. The left half did not get a good flush hit from the heat press. It didn't get solid pressure. So that's why we press the left half by itself. Okay, just to make sure it's pressed and it's set into the garment properly, you press that left half again and you peel it, and there you have it. Now, again, the pictures you see here, pictures you see here are from a video that is on transferexpress.com, so be sure to catch the video. Okay, so now, and I'm trying to speed it up here, folks, because I know we have a lot of questions happening here. So here's another good one, and I had mentioned this a little bit earlier. Here is applying on or above a pocket of a garment. Now, keep in mind that we talked earlier, and the pillows are not a good thing. Pillows are the enemy for screen print transfers. Now, there are applications from our sister company, Stalls ID Direct, that require pillows. They are a valid accessory, but they're a Stalls accessory. We don't use them here at Transfer Express. So if you're pressing on the pocket of a garment, like on the left-hand side, you see a nice high-end button-up garment that we're just putting a transfer on the pocket there. Or the right-hand side, you've got your landscaper needs shirts. He's got a logo above his pocket. The problem with these applications is the pocket creates an area of uneven pressure. The seams around the pocket and the pocket itself are not flush because the rest of the shirt's flat, and then you've got the pocket suddenly that pops up there. So what you have to do is you have to compensate by raising the surface area above the pocket. You have to get above the seams. You have to get above the pocket. So you do so with a Print Perfect pad. These are a fantastic accessory sold by Stalls ID Direct, a Print Perfect pad. You take your Print Perfect pad and you cut it into a shape that fits into the pocket or that fits above the pocket. That's the proper shape of your transfer. You put the Print Perfect pad underneath, so you're raising the surface area above the seams of the pocket, and you press it that way. Now, if you do not have the money for a Print Perfect pad, you can cheat. Go hit your local Office Max or Office Depot store and buy a foam mouse pad. Now, make sure it's a foam mouse pad, not a cheap plastic one that's going to melt with your heat. Buy a foam mouse pad. Cut the foam mouse pad. I've had people take stacks of cardboard and use pieces of cardboard too. The whole point is you want to use something firm to raise the surface area, not something soft and squishy like a pillow. Okay, so the next one is going to be legs, large legs. Now, this is another one. I have had more than one customer tell me over the phone that they were too afraid to try this because they were afraid of lining these things up. Do not be afraid. This is much easier than you think it is. A large leg print is essentially 24 inches long. Now, our paper is only 14 inches in its biggest dimension. So this means when you do a large leg size here at Transfer Express, you get a piece of paper where your top half of your paper has one half of your large leg, and the bottom half of the paper has the other half of the large leg. So what you find yourself having to do is to cut the paper in half and line up two pieces, which is totally doable. Again, this is why people are afraid of it, but it's much easier than you think. What you do is you cut the pieces apart in the exact middle. It's been designed specifically so that you can cut it down the middle. Our graphic design department makes sure of that before the artwork is printed. So you're going to print, or you're going to cut the transfer straight up the middle. Then you're going to apply either the top half or the bottom half. It's probably smarter to start with the half that's towards the hip of the pants, okay, whether that be the top or the bottom if you're pressing it sideways up or sideways down. You start with the area by the hip. Press that half first, but don't peel the paper yet. Leave the paper on there for just a moment and line up your second half. Then press it and peel both pieces. Okay? What people get stuck on is if they press the first half and then peel the first half, it's going to be a little bit harder to line up. Yes, because you just peeled off your grid lines and such. So you leave the first half on there. Don't peel it immediately. Use the first half of the paper that you've pressed as your guideline to line up the second half. And it's just as simple as making sure the pieces of paper are butted up against each other and the grid lines all line up, and it's very simple. It's 1, 2, 3, done. And again, if my description here is a little bit fast because I want to have time to answer questions, this is a video on our website. The pictures you see here are video stills from Stephanie Graven's videos, so make sure to check that out. Oops. There we go. A sleeve print is just as easy, folks. A sleeve print, you're using the natural seams, the natural creases in the garment as your guide. Okay. Now, these are so simple, and I feel bad when people haven't tried them before. They're hesitant. Here's what we've done. We've taken a navy blue sweatshirt, just a plain Jersey's brand sweatshirt, and we've got the sleeve laying flat across the heat press. Now, you're going to use the crease at the top of the sleeve, not the seam. Remember that the seam that is on the sleeve, that's the armpit, so you don't want to press the transfer down there unless you want the transfer in the armpit. You're going to use the seam, or the crease that's at the top of the sleeve. Use that crease as your barrier. You're going to line your transfer up along that crease, okay, that natural fold in the shirt. You're going to position it as close to that fold as you can get it, and then you're simply going to apply and peel. It really is that easy. The sleeve is creased, folded in the middle of that sleeve, so it's the perfect place to use that as a place to do some lining up. So here's an unusual application. Oh, wow, I just skipped right past that. Sorry about that, folks. Here's an unusual application for you. Can koozies. No matter where you get them from, can koozies can be a little bit of an interesting application for you. The catch, the thing you have to make sure, whether you're getting the can koozies, the zip-up bottle koozies, or the cute little t-shirty koozies like that, regardless of which type of koozie you're getting, make sure it is the type of koozie that can lay flat, whether it's collapsible or it has a little Velcro strap that puts it together if it's one of those can deals. Make sure whatever it is, whatever type it is, that it lays flat. That's the catch. Otherwise, every type of transfer we carry here at Transfer Express, all of them can be easily applied to koozies, whether it's a one-color screen print, multicolor screen print, or even the digital products, the CAD Prints products, a really cool full-color look. I just did a whole set of koozies for my father's business, as a matter of fact, so these are a great gift, too. You can get cheap koozies, cheap, small digital transfers, and a really fantastic, cost-effective way to do some advertising for your business or for your customers. So, also keep in mind, folks, when you have those extra transfers, when you've ordered too many transfers, you have extra, koozies are a fantastic way to get rid of those extra transfers. Simply take your tiny little transfer, your small extra transfers, press them on the koozies, and they're a great giveaway for your loyal customers. So again, just make sure the type of koozie you're getting is the type that lays flat. I personally would recommend looking up Broder Brothers. Broder Brothers has a very, very, very basic selection of canned koozies, but it's a starting area for you if you've never done this before. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Polypropylene bags. My favorite part of the seminar that we did, the D3 seminar, was when we pressed on the polypropylene bags and shocked everybody, because if you've ever tried to press polypropylene, you know that it melts at 300 degrees or so, about 300, 305, 310, thereabouts, is where polypropylene turns from bag to muck. And they're very popular in our industry because they are very cost-effective. They're also seen as a very green, eco-friendly item. That's why you see them used in tote bags. The catch is you have to apply them at a cool time and temperature, and the very best way to do that we have found is to use our ElastiPrints products. Now, technically, the ElastiPrints are made for stretchy garments, and your polypropylene doesn't stretch. But the little side effect of our ElastiPrints is that they're pressed at only 275 degrees. So with the melting point of 300 degrees for polypropylene, that ElastiPrint at 275 degrees is a perfect way to do your polypropylene bags. Now, there are people who have had luck using digital products. Digital products are pressed at 305 degrees, though, so the problem is you run the risk of melting your polypropylene at that point. So my advice to you is to give it a try if you have to do the digital area. If you don't have to do digital print on polypropylene, go with the ElastiPrint. It will work every time at that low temperature. Okay. Whew. I was afraid we were going to run out of time there. Now, as part of the wrap-up here, folks, Jody, if you're still with me, I am sure we probably have a lot of questions. Are there any immediate questions we can get to there, Jody?
Yes. Hopefully, I think we may be able to get to most of them in the next 8 minutes. And if not, we will email you and answer whatever question we're unable to answer in the time allotted. And that being said, let's get started. One of the most asked questions, quite a few people asked this, Andy, as far as the zippered hoodie where you unzipped the hoodie right away, they wanted to know if you do that instantly or if you let it cool first.
Fantastic question. You know what? It does not make a difference one way or the other.
Okay.
My advice, though, I would find that when the ink is still warm, you're going to get a little bit more cooperation, a little bit less, what's the word I'm looking for, a little bit less schmutz on the edges, that rough sort of grittiness on the edges of the transfer where you've just unzipped. I would do it while it's still warm. That was where how I saw it done, how I did it. It's much more effective that way. And keep in mind, if any of you are skeptical about the zipper part, there are people who have preferred to have an X-Acto knife on hand and do it that way instead. But obviously you're giving yourself an extra step there. So I would do it while it's hot.
And then how much would you increase the pressure to go over a fabric covered zipper?
That's a good question too, and that answer is completely dependent upon whether or not you have a auto press or one of the air presses or one of the manual presses. If you have a press where you have a gauge, you can see what your pressure rating is, then it's very simple. Most times your pressure is at 6, between 6 and 8. Whatever pressure you would normally use, turn it up to the next step, so a 7 if your pressure is usually at a 6. Make it a 7 or an 8. If your pressure is usually at a 7, make it an 8, maybe a 9. If you don't have a pressure gauge, folks, then what your goal is just to turn it up a little bit. You don't ever want your press pressure so high you have to throw yourself on top of it.
So true.
That's when you know you've gone too far.
Right. And do the zippers have to be metal, or can they buy plastic zippered hoodies as well?
You know what? I've seen that done both ways too. It depends on the quality of the hoodie that you've purchased. There are plastic hoodies, or there's plastic zippers out there that are able to withstand the heat, and there are some that are not. My advice would be to ask the manufacturer if you're unclear. If you have a hoodie with a plastic zipper, ask the manufacturer if it can be heat pressed over top of. Or if worse comes to worse, sometimes you just have to order one and try it. Otherwise, my advice would be to stick with the metal ones wherever possible.
And you did have a couple questions wondering if you could use this same technique, and I'm assuming it's the zipper it down with vinyl as well, or with foil.
Um, you know what? I have never tried doing it with the vinyl, but I don't think that's going to work.
Right, and I was actually, I think I can safely say that with vinyl, with a zippered hoodie, you are going to want to have it already split in order to, in a way, you know what I mean, allow like a 2-inch allowance when you're printing or having your printer cut it for you. Like here at Stalls, we actually have, we ask you, are you doing a zipper? What is the seam allowance, 2 inches? And then we accommodate for that because this technique will not work with vinyl.
Yeah, no, vinyl's a different breed of animal. The reason it works with us for the ink is because the ink is made differently than the vinyl is. Obviously, plastisol ink is a totally different apples and oranges comparison to vinyl. So don't try that with your vinyl.
Right. And then another attendee wanted to know if they can't use a pillow to press, then how do they press on reversible mesh jerseys with a screen printed transfer?
That is a fantastic question, and actually I'm not sure if Stephanie has a video about that up there, but I'll be sure to check with her after we're done here. The way you do it is you have a piece of non-stick paper sold by Stalls ID Direct, or craft paper, or the cover sheets from us here at Transfer Express. Difference is the cover sheets are 1 or 2 uses before it's sort of depleted. But the whole point is the pillow gives you have the right idea. If you're using the pillow, then the transfer is not sticking through the holes of the mesh to the other side, and you've got that idea right, but the problem is the pillow is going to take away the pressure, like I said. So your goal is to press it without the ink going through the holes and sticking to the other layers of the garment. So you simply put your non-stick paper, your cover sheet, whatever it is, up inside the layers in such a fashion that you're not pressing on the other layers. You've just got your one layer on top and then your transfer on top of that. So that's how you would handle that situation.
And then if someone gets ink on their top plate of their press, how do they clean it?
You know what? There's the best way to handle it is have a dish rag. Here's the way to look at it, folks. If you have a Hotronix heat press, those are coated with a non-stick surface up there, and there's a very good reason for that. I have done this enough in my 11 years, more times than I should actually be admitting on a webinar probably, but you take a rag and you get the rag damp and you treat it just like your best frying pan. You turn your heat press off and you let it cool down just a tiny bit. You just don't want your press flaming hot. With your press still warm, take your damp rag and you should be able just to wipe that transfer right off. If you want to get technical, you're welcome to take a little dot of Dawn dish soap and use that. I've done that once or twice too, just to ensure cleanliness. But a damp washcloth with a warm press, not hot, don't hurt yourself. But that's the best way to clean it.
Okay, and then I think we only have time for just a couple more,
Okay.
and then you guys will have to answer the rest. For the split front. Gail wanted to know if you can apply it like the zippered hoodie and split it with a razor, like an X-Acto knife or something like that.
The problem with that strategy, Gail, is that the left side of the jersey did not get a good enough press by itself. That would work if both halves of the jersey were getting flush application pressure. But remember, maybe it would help if you lay a button-down jersey on your heat press and you get your face down level with your plait and look at it that way. The right side of the jersey is sitting higher up. So that if you press it like I suggested and then try to cut it apart, it'll seem okay at first because the left side came off the paper, looks good and all that, but it didn't get a flush enough hit to actually stay in the fabric. So the very first time your customer washes those, it's just going to come right off. So you want to make sure that you've split it ahead of time, you've pressed the one half, peeled it, then pressed the left half a second time to make sure it's firmly set in there. Good question, though.
Yes. We had a couple questions about the koozies. JL wanted to know what temperature you should use for doing koozies and for how long. I just
You know
did some
what,
koozies and I followed the instructions. I was able to use the application instructions, but that was with vinyl. I don't know if it's different with screen printed.
I was actually about to say the same thing. No, I literally just did koozies for my father's business, as a matter of fact. And they're a Christmas present, but he doesn't watch my webinars, so I'm okay to say that. I just, but you know what? I just followed the instructions, believe it or not. The koozies, I have never seen anything happen at the higher temperatures. Keep in mind, the highest I've pressed them at is 365 degrees with our goof-proof product. I've also used the digital product at 305 degrees. There's no extra steps needed. There's no extra little bits and pieces to do. It really is that simple. Just, again, make sure you've got a koozie that lies flat. Because if you have a form-fit koozie, I've seen those where they come to you and they're stiff. They can't be flattened out. There's no way to press those.
Exactly.
Make sure it's a koozie that lies flat.
And I can say I just did koozies for a friend who was going on a cruise. It was her friend's 40th birthday. And I did digital just fine following the application instructions. And I also mixed my vinyl. I did some in hologram. I did some in super film. I did some in fashion film. And I think those were the three medias I used. So, and I just followed the application instructions for all of them. So we are actually out of time. I hate to rush everybody. Everybody had great questions, but I can assure you we will answer your questions via email, the ones that haven't been answered that you didn't hear answered on this webinar. I'd also like to thank Andy for joining us.
No, my pleasure, Jody. Thank you to everybody for coming. I appreciate it. And make sure to stick around on December 6th. Make sure to join us. My friend Georgianne Schilling and my friend Marianne Pavlak will join me. They are subject matter experts in their areas, and the three of us will have a good time, I'm sure. So make sure to, and come with questions. I challenge you all on December 6th to stump me. Bring a question, try and stump me.
That's a good challenge. Yes, and I thank everyone for attending today. Our next webinar is actually going to be next Tuesday. That's with Stephen Jackson from Imprintables Warehouse. He is presenting a webinar on how to price your jobs right, and we get a ton of questions about that. So this would definitely be a webinar I think that's more than worthwhile of sitting in. And then, of course, like Andy said, they are having a panel of experts, so just come armed with all of your questions, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Thanks, everyone, for joining, and make it a great day.